You wanna know what makes Nazis sound edgy? It's a very well kept secret, so you're gonna have to come close. Closer. A little bit closer. You dumbass!
Now, this one is interesting for me to write the words for it. Like, I knew I needed to talk about it, I just knew that it was right to talk about it on this list. After all, this is a channel that I've also been watching for around 8 or 7 years. In fact, he was just done with season 4 of MLP, and I thought his videos were entertaining. At best, these are good showcases of how we need to take every form of content creation a bit more seriously regardless of its demographic. At worst, it's a channel that has something to say in a somewhat uncomfortable way. With that said, I want to repeat, this is a celebration, not a roast or a commentary or whatever the fuck that pina is, and like with the Totally Not Mark video, I want to show the importance of how far has the channel come. And let's start with the major reason why I wanted to showcase this channel from the very conception of this project, which is the sense of growth. Writer and speaker coach Rachel Bion mentions in an article, growth means change, but it doesn't mean you change your intrinsic nature or characteristics. It doesn't change who or what you are. I'm a believer that growing has a more significant value than the traditional meaning of changing. A flat-out change will require us to simply pretend to be someone that we're not. I'm a very on the fence kind of person. I was taught that everyone has the reasons to say what they say, and that I need to listen to both sides of an argument in order to form my own thoughts about something that I wasn't present to experience to begin with. And if you've been around social media enough, you'll know that's something that can bring some enemies for a variety of reasons. But while I have worked on becoming much more open to listen to people's arguments, and to sometimes simply say no to things I shouldn't get involved, I have by no means replaced that part from me, and that's been something that I can see on Mr. Enter's work. Without going too much into the story behind him, he's a reviewer for animated projects, majorly American animations, but with a majorly biased direction. And what I mean by that is that when you see a video called either Animated Atrocities or Admirable Animations, it's kind of obvious to assume what he thinks about the topic in question. Some of his arguments do feel a bit shallow, personally, like saying something is shit and nothing else, but other times, and nowadays more often than not, he will solidify his arguments, but they can still run the risk of generating a bite that turns into how he will do it, rather than going through the general flaws. But again, it's a bit of a trial and error when going out of your way to say that something subjective as forms of entertainment are bad or good. And that's majorly his difference between him and other reviewers. He does have what I like to call factual opinions, which means that while he's still just expressing his thoughts and not being above other people, the wording on his videos ends up causing that feeling for those that listen to it. And no, I don't actually think he puts himself above other people. His format just makes him sound like someone who does. And I do make the emphasis on his format of work because when you're making a series of videos that establishes through the title that everything in it will fall under a particular label of quality, then the content feels like a statement rather than his own thoughts. To the point where a lot of people will go at him just because they don't agree with him, because God forbid you have a different opinion. Now, it shouldn't be said, since I assume we should just expect that to be the case, but harassing someone over opinions on fiction should never be an option. In fact, just don't harass people. If you don't like someone or something, then just avoid it. With that said, as I have mentioned throughout this special, it is important to consider that how we say things matters just, if not more, than what we actually say. He has mentioned in the past that he considers himself a blunt person, and sure, that's completely fair and sometimes needed so we don't mess around during a conversation, but being blunt isn't the same as being rude or offensive or insensitive or whatever other synonym, which is easier said than done. I am fully aware of that. But being blunt is speaking your mind on a general and straightforward level, while rude is merely trying to be offensive. If I could put it on a more clear example, there's a difference between saying that you don't think a show or project is good and saying that you think it's awful and you don't know what people behind it were thinking. I'm not saying that we need to avoid flourish language. If you want to say something is shit, say it, but we need to be able to consider how one's actions or words affect other people. It means using attitude and statements that can be seen as hurtful or degrading will generate a result that we don't want to make. And to be honest, that's the major sign of growth that Mr. Enter has shown, which is to either be sure to get his point across without that many slurs, or to just have fun with it. One of his latest works was literally going out of his way to tackle topics that he didn't like, while knowing they were beloved, or at least well known. Think of it as an unpopular opinion special. Though the Samurai Jack one was pretty tame from what I've seen in terms of being unpopular. But that's the point. It was meant to be seen as a series of videos with an intentional vibe that, taking it seriously, somewhat misses the intention of the videos, at least if you ask me. And I don't know, I can't help but feel proud of how far the channel and his work has come since the days of MLP. His content is not perfect, and there are plenty of things that can and have been criticized about his work and methods of working on YouTube. But you know what? He didn't give up, he kept going, to the point where the criticism got so off the walls that nowadays it's really hard to say what's worth listening and what's not in terms of criticism. One of the major considerations with this special is the fact that I know there's always a possibility that the YouTubers I talk about will watch my videos, not just because of the obvious tagging them on Twitter part, but because I have watched and enjoyed these channels until this day, or in some cases, the very end. This is a celebration to my own life on YouTube as a mere viewer, and even if people can give me all the reasons to not watch a particular channel, chances are I already know of those reasons, but I majorly have hope that MrEnter will succeed. By this point it's inevitable given how he's managed to go through hell and back and getting better with each passing video. His content is not for everyone. He can be more rude than blunt, all things considered, but within the context of respecting the efforts, struggles, and improvements that the channel has gone through, I honestly want to see him keep going until he, not every other YouTuber that has capitalized on hating him, he decides that it's over and move on to the next thing if there's one afterwards to begin with. With that said, if I could make one request for it, at least as a viewer, I think it will be healthier to make more lighthearted content. I'm not saying go back to admirable animations or to do that top 10 commercials video, but just do content that doesn't imply creating a negative environment. Even if it's cathartic, everything is bad when it's taken to an extreme, and it will be proper to just do things that may not get him too emotional. Sometimes it's just better to slow down a little bit. There are plenty of content creators that simply cannot grow the fuck up and do not learn that their own personalities attract their haters. But MrEnter, for all intents and purposes, whether you like him or not, he will keep getting better and going further to succeed. And for that, if he listens to this, I respect him. Probably more than many creators that I enjoy and find easy to recommend, because he worked around the hatred and managed to improve in his own way. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.